Hello and welcome to another video produced by 3M Creations. If you've not already seen my previous video, it should be in a link either below the video or in the video description. It wasn't anything too in-depth. It was a review on the Animation Toolkit Armature rigging kit. And this next item is actually also going to be a review of another Animation Toolkit piece, but one that I am very proud to own in my kit now, and also one that I personally think is one of the strongest items that Animation Toolkit can supply now, and that is the Harryhausen Creature Armature Kit, or Armacreature as they have so lovingly dubbed it. And this is a kit that I have been waiting for a very, very long time. In fact, since probably 2002 when I first started university, I've been waiting for someone, whether it be a studio or a professional armature builder, to build, if not a kit, then at least a particular piece that is either endorsed or highly represented by Harryhausen. And until the 10th of December 2012, just gone, they announced this on not only the Animation Toolkit site, but also on Ray's official Facebook page, Twitter account. Also, this is a highly anticipated piece, which I think most animators, both professional and amateur, have been looking forward to for many, many years now. So let's talk about the tin then. Well, normally I wouldn't bother with packaging details in the sense of everything's very box-like and simple, but this I think I do have to talk about for the mere sake that it's a very retro-looking packaging. It's presented in was essentially a film canister, which I think is something very unusual and quite nostalgic in some ways as well. It's definitely something that I wouldn't personally want to throw away. Armacreature's written across the front, including the concept of the Allosaurus from 1 million years BC. It's also got the Harryhausen signature, as well as brought to you by the Animation Toolkit Limited and the Ray and Diana Harryhausen Foundation. On the back of the packaging, you have the kit contents, most of which I shall tell you a bit later on. A humanoid description, what I believe that they refer to as the dinosaur armature, and I always think of this as Gromit, but I've been told it's actually the dog armature that they also portray that you can make out of the same kit, which is actually quite good. From the description that I've seen online for this, they actually encourage you to use your imagination rather than just follow the instructions. So yeah, to own something like this is quite a privilege in some ways, but I'm going to be really looking forward to working with this kit. I must say. So, as if by magic, if it balance, the components appear. So, unfortunately the camera setup isn't all that great, so I shall try my best to rearrange this, fingers crossed. I've only got one item per unit, mainly for the sake of that this contains quite a lot of individual pieces, but as I'm about to do, I'm going to tell you each individual units and hopefully explain to you what each one of them represents. So, I'll start with the instructions, which you can download on the website. It's a bit difficult to tell at this angle, but I shall try my very best. The simple instructions, they don't have any written languages on them at all, except for the various different translations of instructions. And the pack contents on the front as well. It tells you all your itinerary, which it does on the back of the tin as well, of what you should be expecting in the kit. And as I say, you can also download these instructions as a PDF off the Animation Toolkit website as well. So, to start with, I shall put this here. Will actually help me remember some of these things as well. Right, so for starters, you get the components that make up your single. Let's see which is going to be the best way to view this. Here we go. Yeah, your single ball and socket joint. You also get 20 of the screws, 30 of the threaded beads, 10 of the double joints and 5 of the I can't remember what these are flipping called now. 5 of these particular components, which are from according to the instructions for the feet, for the hands, and for the head as well. Now, the idea of these being that you can thread wire through these holes which are provided. The centre hole is your thread for any screws, which I shall get onto momentarily. And these are actually quite robust, actually. Quite heavy as well. Not heavy. Heavy is the wrong word, but for the type of metal that it is, I wasn't expecting them to be this weighty. But like I say, it's not a bad thing. And considering how strong, if it's anything to go by the rig that I was demonstrating earlier on, I think these are going to be quite interesting as a full armature kit. So that's your joints side of things. Just a quick little chat about the balls. Ball beads. They are all threaded. They're a 6mm ball, which I do believe, I'm not quite confirmed on this yet, but I also believe these will be available as a 9mm ball joint as well. So yeah, 6mm bead there. The stop trying to escape. The aluminium wire is also provided. Now, I believe this is 1mm thick and 3mm long. 3 meters even, sorry. Which is these, they provide the aluminium wire to go with it as well. And why it's coated in green, I'm not entirely sure. It's the first time I've ever seen any of this, and I've not cut into it yet. Only way for me to find out is actually to try it out later on. But yeah, the fact that you get, hopefully it's going to be a professional aluminium wire. I can't say I've been disappointed by animation toolkit so far, so there's no reason to assume that there is. Now the T-section, threaded all the way through, bar the actual T-joint only has 1 thread. 3 threads, sorry. Doesn't actually have any through and throughs like it does on the other sides. This is probably the heaviest piece I've come across so far in the kit. You actually get 2 of these, one acting as the shoulder joints, and then another acting as the hip joints. And the fact that they've actually got this many threads through it not only gives an excellent potential in rigging possibilities, but also in the possibilities of how many parts your character needs. You know, there's quite a few possibilities with this particular piece, and this is probably one of the pieces I'm really going to look forward to using the most in the kit. So you get 2 of those T-points, and knocking the camera as I do so. You also get 2 of the screw threads and washers. I believe these are also M3, which probably would tie in for the rest of the other kit that you have as well. Somewhat a bit of confusion on this, on the tie kit as well. According to the instructions, the screw goes through and then you secure it via a washer on the bottom. Now, if you've got a puppet that's completely covered over, you're not going to be able to put the screw through the shoe or the skin without actually causing the skin to bow through. But then the other side of it is you can't keep the screw through there, otherwise you're going to see the screw thread coming through the bottom. Now, there may be something here that I'm not quite seeing until I've fully assembled it, but personally I don't think I'll be using this particular method of tie down. The tie down on this, I'm not too sure whether it would work on a complete covered puppet, but as the kit suggests on here, which I more than will be what's the word I'm looking for here, more than happy to say that it probably will work, but we'll get to see that during the well, not the assembly, the final assembly of this as well. What else have I not mentioned yet? Yes, you also get the Loctite glue again, which is also featured in the rig video. You also get the 2mm Allen key. So in this respect, I've now got 2 Allen keys. So if I lose one, I've always got a backup, which is always a good thing to know. And you also get 10 of the thread rods. The longest one, the 100mm, which is this one, you only get 4 of. every other size, the 10mm, the 25, the 50 and the 75mm rods, you will get 10 of these, but the longest one, the 100mm, you will only get 4 of those. And I don't know if I covered this on the rigging video or not, but I actually found out you can actually cut these with Dremel tools and fine tooth saws, if you wish to shorten these down if you were to get multiple versions of these kits. But I think for the purpose of this demonstration video, I'm just going to use the kit as it is to assemble and show you what the finished kit would look like in its full form. Yeah, so I think that's everything. I don't think I've missed anything out. Just checking over the itinerary. No. Oh, actually, quick little note on this. Who does this Armature composition remind you of? Alright, fade the camera. There we go. Who does that remind you of? It sort of reminds me a cross between the Ema from 20 Million Miles to Earth and the Homunculus from Golden Voyage of Sinbad. It should be interesting to assemble though, nonetheless. So, yes, I shall get underway with that, and I shall see you in a few. Right then, and here we go. This is the finished kit, fully assembled and attached to the rig, which, if you haven't already seen, is on a previous video that I filmed earlier on. I will have to apologise for some certain areas, like the hip joints. I didn't want to glue them into position, as I will be using this armature for something completely different, but I have tightened them up as best as I possibly could, but everything else is more or less glued up and ready for you. Yeah, first impressions, really impressed, to be honest with you. Now that I've actually got it in front of me, it's actually quite a big armature. It's a decent sized armature, especially if you just want to use a character of this portion anyway. I'm really impressed. The articulation on it is a bit limited in some points, but I will approach that on a jump cut. The rig works well, particularly with this character as well. Doesn't work so well for if you want to have it raised off the ground so none of the feet are touching at all. I don't think the 6mm ball bearings are designed for a character of this weight, at least, to be supported on, even on its tightest setting. I find that unless it's vertically stood up, it doesn't actually do that much. But there are to be released 9mm and a 3mm ball bearings, as different sized armatures will probably require different sized ball bearings for different strengths, which I'm imagining if you were to go for a 9mm on the ball bearings for the rig kit, you probably could support this character quite easily. For a kit for £99, this is something that, as a student back in 2005, I definitely would have purchased. So articulation. As I said, there are some parts that aren't that great, but then there are other parts that work really well. The spine or backbone part of the armature is really well proportioned. It feels really soft to move, but not too rigid where you would end up having to feel that you were putting too much pressure to manoeuvre it. The joints for the limbs, again, really smooth. You can tighten them or loosen them as much as you need to in order to make the smooth movement. The wrist joints on this one I'm particularly happy with. There was an armature that I worked on some years ago for a friend of mine, which was also ball and socket, where the structure of how you attach the hand to the wrist wasn't quite how I imagined it, and in practice I don't think works as well as, say, something like this one. Again, by tightening or loosening the Allen key point, you can really get a good friction on how to adjust it with very little movement. The tail, I would probably say, depending on what sort of rods you want to use, would determine how well this would actually end up working in practice. I know I've used the longest, the medium, and the two second smallest rods for this. I preferably would have loved to have used the smaller two throughout the entire tail, but unless you purchase more double joints for this, then there's probably no way you'd actually be able to get around that. But it depends on how many parts you end up using in the kit as well. I mean, for what you actually get left over in the kit, you do get quite a substantial amount left over. The wire, I will note as well, I will do for a separate tutorial at a later date. It's quite a good setup, really. They prepare you for any eventuality of you need in different size rods. Personally, I would have thought that for the smaller rods you may need slightly more than just I think it was 10 of each rod, apart from the longest ones where you only got the 4. But again, I'm assuming that they've taken into accountability that, you know, people will probably want to be using different ones, and you can also purchase different sized length rods from the Animation Toolkit site as well. So I'll talk about now briefly for the joints limitations that I found and the solutions to those limitations as well. Right, so what I noticed was when you're bending the armature joint, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, I'll try my best. When you're bending the armature joint, because you have this limitation point here, you can only bend the arm so much, so you can only get something like a 45... God, here we go. That's better. A 45-degree angle on the armature, but what I have been told and discovered via another animator who's also purchased the same kit, you can file down these areas to allow for the greater movement of the armature, and I've even been told by the director of the armature company as well that as professional armature builders, they are aware that even professionals in the industry would also do this as well, so it's not something uncommon, which is I would have personally thought would have been a case of, you know, you get this kit and you can't do anything else with it, but the fact you can file down the areas like this to gain greater movement out of it, I find is an additional bonus, and also a big discovery for me as a stop motion animator as well. Right, yeah, so the hip joint, for what they've shown in the instructions, it's not so much it's an accident or a deliberate error, but it is something that I have noticed now that makes me think I probably should have thought this one through a bit more. According to the instructions, the single joint goes either side of the hip and the ball joint goes at the top of the thigh. As someone that should have that studies anatomy as well, I should have really figured out that it should have been the opposite way around, that the bead goes at the top of the hip joint and the single joint goes at the top of the thigh. Like I say, it's not that I'm saying the instructions are wrong. This particular leg setup would work for a low-bodied character. So, say for example, if you've got like a crab type character, then this particular setup would work, except on a bipedal character where the legs need to have more of a swing to the motion of the legs. This particular setup wouldn't work. But he also did say as well that the instructions are there as a guide rather than as an actual as a how-to. So in some ways it's a learning experience for an animator, and I know probably a few of you are thinking that, well, now that I've done it this way, does that mean I would probably have to go out and buy some more? Luckily not. He told me as well that you can actually use a blowtorch on areas like this to dissolve the glue, take off the particular component that you don't want, and then brush down, sorry, the threaded rod with a steel brush. So I don't have to now worry about extra costs on top of this, and then reattach it as I would see fit. So I'm quite chuffed about that, and not as worried either. Right, so let's have a look at the feet. So the paddled feet that you get with this kit, they're not too bad actually. I mean, as far as hands go, they work fantastic. As far as feet go, they're not too bad. I have also been informed as well that they will be removing the paddles for the feet at least anyway. For this item, which due to the nature of the editing suite that I'm using, I can only show you as an image. So here you go. So that's what they're going to be replacing the foot paddles with. I'm not entirely sure whether they're replacing them permanently or whether they're doing them as an additional to the kit. The message was very brief. It wasn't an in-depth conversation per se about what components are being replaced and what are being added into. But the fact that he came out with that these are going to come into the kit, I would imagine they're probably going to replace 2 of the paddles with 2 of the foot armatures. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I can probably say that I'd be quite happy to give it a try at least, see what they're like. Now, in conjunction with the tie down, what I discovered when I was trying to attach this on during the making of is that it's just far too small for me. I mean, the wing nuts are fine. There's not a problem with the wing nuts at all. But the actual head of the screw, for my size fingers at least anyway, I find it quite a chore to remove these. And I don't have anything in terms of whether it be a tool or a kit item that would be able to attach itself onto this and that I can just unravel. However, what I did come up with during my prototyping of the Martian Rex was this, where I basically had I thought originally that if I just used the one wing nut, I could just unscrew the head using a screwdriver. That proved more of a challenge in itself, but what I did discover was that if I threaded the wing nut all the way down to the bottom and secured it with glue, I could then attach a second wing nut to act as the acting grip, giving this the opportunity just for me to have an extra large surface area for me to grip properly. So if you weren't using magnets and you were going with the tie-down system, if you struggle the same way that I did, then I would probably suggest doing something like this. I mean, in terms of finding another M3 wing nut, it shouldn't be too hard. Most stores sell them. If not, I'm sure you should be able to get a second pair from Animation Toolkit. But yeah, this to me is too small for my liking, but it's not something that I can honestly say is impractical for me to use. Yeah, so now we'll have a quick look at the T sections. Okay, so I know this is not much different than the T section that we looked on the hip joint earlier on, but I was also informed about the very strong likelihood that these are also going to be replaced with block joints. Now, I'm not sure whether he refers to the block joint as a pure square rectangle or whether it's going to be a cross joint like this essentially, but those will be replaced at some point. Possibly, I think all the replacements that I've mentioned so far are going to be in March. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, the amount of threads that you get in this is just much better. The armature that I assembled a few years ago had a very different setup to this, where you could only rig your character from the hip joint. You couldn't do anything else in terms of the rest of the body. With this having so many thread points, not only gives you ample opportunity to attach your armature joins anywhere in the body, but you can also rig it at any joint in the body, which for me is just so much easier than having it restricted to just one point. The only thing that I found an issue with is that although for say the smaller sections like this you could thread your rod all the way through and therefore having a nice flush base at the bottom, for areas like the middle section here you could go straight through the first section, but then you might not be able to necessarily be able to get past that second section. Now, I'm not sure if that's due to the nature of the way it was machined, or the way that the threads are coming through on the opposite sides, or even the through and through that comes through the top. But it's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's still quite deep for the thread to actually go all the way through. But some people might want to do a complete through and through of one single thread bar, which, you know, it's user's opinion, but I personally am quite happy with it, really. Attaching the thread lock was quite easy enough as well, especially in these areas where you just put a little dab in, start screwing it through, and spreads all over the place. Not necessarily out the pores, but it spreads well, that it's not blocking it or anything like that, which I'm quite happy about. As I also mentioned before, the rigging point as well, you can attach anywhere on these as well, and with it being deep enough as well, will hold the character, which I'm really happy about as well. Okay then, so this concludes, I would say, the review video. If I had to mark this out of 5 stars, I would probably most likely give this a full 5 stars. I mean, not just for the fact that it's an armature kit that's been endorsed by Harryhausen, but for the fact that compared to a previous armature that I built, as I said, keep going back to a few years ago, this is just so much more easier to construct. The components have multiple uses, like the T-section. It's easy to fix if you do make any errors. I mean, the fact that you're going to get replacement components in future, or maybe even just additional components, I'm not entirely sure, as I say. But yeah, it's just a really, really good kit, and it's not so much that I'm disappointed with the instructions, but as a new person who's not very familiar with armatures, which if I was to put myself in the mind of a student, that would be a problem. But aside from that, I'm really impressed with the armature. The weight is just right. The amount you can change it into, from what I've seen of photos of just this kit in itself, is fantastic. The fact how easy it is to customise it to your will is fantastic as well. So no, I can't falter this at all. I can't falter this as a product at all. I started out, I had some doubts, I'll admit, but I can also say those doubts are well and truly out the window. I have nothing negative to say about this kit at all, and I hope that the makers of this armature are also happy with the work that they've done as well. So I think to end this, I will say that I will be doing a follow-up video, not a tutorial, a video of showing how to edit mistakes like this. I'll probably also show in a video as well, maybe of how to grind these down as well, so I can allow the armature to move about. So yeah, I hope that the video has either opened your eyes up to wanting to purchase this item from Animation Toolkit, or at least answer some questions about your doubts about whether the armature is going to be any good in itself. So yes, thank you for watching, and have fun with the armature kit.